This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. Every who down in WhoVille liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of WhoVille, did not. It's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everyone. It is our 2021 Christmas special, holiday special, but it's about Christmas this time. It always has been. We'll have to do something that's not Christmas.
We're gonna have to find a holiday movie that's not Christmas, that's based on a book.
Well,
if anybody has suggestions,
there's got to be a movie that's about like Hanukkah, or the events that Hanukkah is based on, and you just have to read the Bible.
Okay, yeah, I guess that would work.
You know what I mean? There's got to be a movie about whatchamacallit, the burning of the candle or whatever, or not candle, lantern or whatever.
Yeah.
Because isn't that it's like 8 nights that the oil burned or whatever, and that's
yes, my very surface level understanding
like
of Hanukkah.
Yes. So yeah, just have to read the Bible and then watch that whatever that movie is. I'm sure there's quite a few of those movies, honestly. Because back in the day, they made all kinds of Bible movies, like back in the back in the 50s or whatever, 40s. Anyways,
so many Bible movies.
We'll see. We won't always do only Christmas movies forever. It's just they're very easy to find. We have all of our segments except for Guess Who, because it's a picture book. So unless you're showing me pictures. Also, spoilers, I've read this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like most people could assume that. Most likely because many American children have read this book at some point in their lives, and I definitely have. But I have not read it since I was a child, and I don't remember very much about it, so that's how we're going into this. But I definitely have read it several times. I've seen the animated special quite a few times, but we're going to do our best to make this work. So we don't have Guess Who because, like I said, it is an animated or illustrated children's book. So we're going to get right into Let Me Sum Up, and then we have, we also don't have Lost in Adaptation.
No.
Because not particularly confusing as stories go.
No.
We have everything else, though, so let's get into it with Let Me Sum Up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
All right, so the book summary, I divided it this time. I think we haven't had a divided one in a while.
They are different enough.
Yeah.
The movie we did, the 2000 version, adds enough stuff that it definitely requires a separate.
So our summary of the book. The Grinch lives up on a mountain nearby WhoVille. He hates Christmas, but the Who's love it. This year, the Grinch has had enough, and after WhoVille goes to sleep on Christmas Eve, he disguises himself as Santa and sneaks around town, stealing all of their food, decorations, and gifts. However, when he sees the Who's are still celebrating, despite not having all of their holiday accoutrements, he realizes that there's more to Christmas than material items. His heart grows 3 sizes, and he returns everything to the Who's and celebrates with them.
All right, and the movie summary. The Grinch lives up on a mountain nearby WhoVille. He hates Christmas, but the Who's love it. Through the character of Cindy Lou Who, a little Who girl who is having trouble getting into the Christmas spirit, we learn about how the Grinch used to live in WhoVille and ran away after being bullied by his classmates for being different. Cindy Lou invites the Grinch to their big celebration, which ends with the Grinch getting upset, calling the Who's out for being materialistic and wasteful, and wreaking some havoc on the town's decor. Once he gets back to Mount Crumpet, the Grinch decides that he's had enough, and after WhoVille goes to sleep on Christmas Eve, he disguises himself as Santa and sneaks around town stealing all of their food, decorations, and gifts. However, when he sees the Whos are still celebrating despite not having all of their holiday accoutrements, he realizes that there's more to Christmas than material items. His heart grows 3 sizes, and he returns everything to the Whos and celebrates with them. The end. I feel like everybody's...
Yeah.
Most people know, but there you go. In case you didn't, that's the rough summary. Now let's find out, was that in the book?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
What?
Honestly, don't you two read?
So, want to preface this again by saying I've read this. I've seen the animated special quite a few times. I've seen this movie at least a couple times, more than I remembered, and we'll get to that later, which is true for a lot of movies from my childhood, I feel like. But, so I kind of know the answers to some of these. Some of these I didn't know the answer legitimately. Other ones I'm asking more for the sake of maybe some listeners or just for the sake of discussion. But in general, I was aware, like, some of these questions, I know this isn't in the book, but we're going to ask them anyways. So we start out in the film by watching 4 teen Whos, teen Who ne'er-do-wells. I believe the Grinch calls them juvenile delinquents. Potentially something like that, something along those lines. I believe he calls them juvenile delinquents. And they're climbing Mount Crumpet to go see the infamous Grinch because they're not sure if he actually exists. You know, he's kind of like Bigfoot or whatever. And they go up there and they barge in and not find his door, and then are scared very severely by it's actually Max that scares them, but by proxy of the Grinch. And I don't think so. This is one that I'm fairly certain is not in the book. But do juvenile delinquents go searching for the Grinch and get a big scare in the book?
No, but I did like that part. I forgot that was an element in the movie. I liked the nod to the teen slasher horror genre that was so big at this time.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels like you have... We're only with them very briefly, but it does feel like sort of your classic archetypal, like, teen slasher characters. Like the cool guy, and then, like, the, like, little, like, the like, flirty popular girl.
And the other girl who wants to go back.
Who's, like, scared the whole time. And is like, I don't know, guys! And then the other guy, I don't remember if he even really has any lines, the other boy, but... Boy Who or whatever. But anyways, yeah, I had a feeling that wasn't in the book, or I knew that wasn't in the book. But I thought it was a fun scene too. I thought it worked. It's a little silly, but I enjoyed it. It's a little silly. That's everything in this movie. It's all silly. Like,
yeah, it's all a little silly.
It's all a little silly, so I don't really need to clarify that. But I did enjoy that. After this happens, Grinch realizes that we're coming up on what do they call it in the film?
The Jubilation.
Jubilation, which is like their lead up to Christmas, basically. They have a big celebration. And he goes down to WhoVille to sort of wreak havoc, prank some people, walks through town, doing all kinds of stuff, but pranking people and whatnot. And I didn't think, I'm fairly certain that he does not visit WhoVille in the book until Christmas Eve when he goes down to steal everything. Is that the case?
That's correct. Right? He does not go to WhoVille until he decides to steal Christmas.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about his backstory later, but there is no indication in the book that the Whos even, like, know of him.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's no indication that he even knows of them. Exists. Right, because he lives on the mountain.
He sits up on the mountain and hates them. But there is zero indication that they're even aware of his presence.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's true. I didn't even think about that. Because, like, I knew he didn't go and, like, do this part where he goes and, like, pranks the city or whatever. But I didn't consider and think about that fact that, yeah, they don't even know that he exists. Or they could, but we don't know.
But we don't know that if they know that.
We don't know if they know that, yeah. And so we mentioned in the prequel that the character of Cindy Lou Who was something that Ron Howard saw when reading the book and thought to expand for the sake of the film. And it was something apparently that Audrey Geisel. Is that her name?
Yeah, I think it was Audrey.
Dr. Seuss's wife, who he was pitching to, who the studio was pitching to in order to get the rights to make the film. She seemed to enjoy it because that was a big part of their pitch, was expanding Cindy Lou Who's role and sort of making it a central focus of the film. And this focus that they chose to go with is that Cindy Lou Who is having trouble getting in the holiday spirit. She's sort of questioning the superfluous nature of the holiday. She literally says the word. It's all a bit superfluous.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of liked that. And I'm, again, knowing that she is not a focus. She just shows up at the end in that one scene and he gets her a drink or whatever. Her all of her expansion of character in the movie is purely a movie thing, correct?
Yeah, like you mentioned, greatly expanded in this movie from what her role is in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that she works well as an audience insert character.
Yeah.
We've got Cindy Lou Who was really out here with seasonal depression and at 6 years old, very relatable.
Yeah, I thought that was, because even, she's relatable to kids, but I think she's also just relatable to anybody who's, past a certain age once the Christmas season doesn't quite hold the same magic that it used to.
Yeah.
It's very easy to sort of identify with her and her struggle to sort of recapture the magic of the holiday.
And I think that is part of the reason that this movie is remembered so fondly by people around our age. Because when this movie came out, we were kind of in that age range, like Cindy Lou Who, when Christmas starts to lose some of that sparkle that it has when you're like really young.
Yeah.
Like I feel, because I was in like 4th grade-ish when this movie came out, I guess. 2000, like 4th, 5th grade.
Really? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I was in like 6th
And I
grade.
feel like to me, like 2nd to 4th grade is like that kind of peak where you start to like doubt, oh, Santa Claus probably isn't real,
Yeah.
and it starts to lose like some of the magic that it has when you're like a little kid.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, because to me, I will say that for me, I don't feel like I felt the holiday losing its sort of sheen until I was quite a bit older, even though I actually stopped. I didn't believe in Santa from a very young age. Like I figured it out very young. And the fun story of how I figured it out pretty young is that I actually just told this at work today. We were talking about like when we stopped believing in Santa or whatever. In like kindergarten or something. I don't remember what grade it was. But my school, every year we had it might have been like kindergarten, 1st grade, something like that. Our school would have like a Santa like a Christmas assembly where like Santa would come and there would be like, it was like the choir would sing Christmas song or whatever. And at the end, Santa would be there or whatever. And I remember in one of my very early elementary school grades, like I said, kindergarten, 1st grade, something like that, Santa Claus showed up. And I was like, that's my uncle. It was my uncle who had a beard and could play the part of Santa very well, but I knew that was my uncle. I was like, that is...
Oh, babe.
Yep. I was like, that is my uncle. And... that was one of the very early things that started me, and then very shortly thereafter, But it wasn't until quite a bit after that. I don't even know when. Until it's even not knowing, I still very much had. I don't know. The holiday still had the magic and the sheen for me. It wasn't until probably pushing my 20s where it really started to like peter out a little bit. I still love the holiday and whatever, but where I started to feel that a little bit more. So I don't know.
I always think I don't know. I guess I stopped believing in Santa Claus in like 2nd or 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And I still loved the holidays. I still loved Christmas. I still do.
Yeah.
Similar to what you said, it does start to lose.
It does
some
start
of
to
the
lose some of it
sheen.
a little bit.
But I do think, like thinking back, it's not the same once you like really stop believing. I think in my opinion.
I mean, it could be. To me, I don't have a feeling of it being different. Part of that could be like my parents went real hard in the paint on Christmas. Like we decorated like crazy. It was just a big holiday. We blew it up. But so that was a lot of what I really enjoyed. Also, like Santa was never a really big deal. Like even when I believed in Santa, it was like he brought a couple presents, but my parents gave us most of the presents were from my parents, and Santa like brought like some stocking stuffers or whatever. But yeah, I don't disagree. I don't know. I think the thing for me, honestly, that probably was the point where it started losing some of its sheen is when I wasn't home the entire holiday. I think just being at home where my parents are, where the whole house is decorated and all that stuff, like in college and whatnot. You know, we would put up some, maybe like a string of lights in the living room or something, but like we weren't you know what I mean? Like it wasn't, we weren't going all out for Christmas. And I think that's probably when it started to really like sort of not be the same kind of magical experience that it was when I was a kid. But this is a fun little detail that I actually liked quite a bit, is that we find out that the Who's have like a trash system in their town, in WhoVille, that they dump their trash in, and it's like almost like a vacuum or something that sucks it all up and then dumps all the trash on Mount Crumpet. And I don't recall that being in the book or the animated film, but I couldn't recall. This is one that I legitimately wasn't sure, but I don't know. So is that in the book?
It's not from the book, and I don't recall that it's in the animated version.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
But I agree. It's a good ad, and it works especially well with the consumer culture critique that the movie kind of expands on.
Yeah, it seems like a very obvious sort of addition to what is already a very clear, a critique, indictment of consumerism and the consumerification of Christmas or whatever in the holidays. And so I thought it made perfect sense. It also, I think, just kind of ties in some other very obvious common Dr. Seuss theming with sort of eco or
like environmentalism.
Yeah. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Because I mean, environmentalism is a through line through quite a few other Seuss books, and so bringing that in here made perfect sense.
Yeah, and I think even expanding beyond environmentalism, just like social responsibility in general, is a big theme throughout Seuss. So I think that really works.
So this is the biggest change, obviously, and I knew this wasn't in the book, but I'm still going to ask it so we can talk about it, and that's the Baby Grinch backstory. I have mixed feelings on this, I feel like, and I'm interested to get your input. But just to be super clear for everybody, there's no Baby Grinch backstory, or any Grinch backstory for that matter, in the book, correct?
No, there's no backstory for the Grinch in the book. I feel like we've kind of alluded to a couple things I'm going to say here. You mentioned Bigfoot earlier, and he is almost kind of depicted as this, like a local cryptid.
In the movie?
In the book.
Oh, in the book.
I mean, he's almost like a cryptid. Like I said, there's no indication that the Who's know anything about him.
Right.
He just like lives in his cave. On the mountain.
Yeah. A cryptid that no one's aware of.
Yes, a cryptid the best kind of cryptid.
Yeah.
A cryptid that no one is aware of.
Seemingly.
There's no indication that he is a Who or was a Who or has ever interacted with them in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Grinch's backstory in the movie totally works for me either.
Yeah.
Like, he's the Grinch because he was bullied, but also he was already Grinchy before that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, are you saying it was nature or that it was nurture? Like, what are you saying here, movie?
Yeah.
I feel like they're trying to have it both ways.
Also, he doesn't look anything like, not that he doesn't look anything like the other Who's. But, he's green. He's very hairy in a way that the other Who's are not. And he doesn't look particularly like the other Who's. But the movie, I couldn't tell if the implication, because at the beginning when we see him floating, like, they tell Cindy Lou Who, the Grinch's, Ersatz parents tell Cindy Lou Who the backstory of the Grinch, and we see him come floating in on a
it's like a little bassinet with an umbrella.
And I'm still honestly not sure if it's because the movie kind of plays it both ways. If that's supposed to be them lying.
Right, like, the
to
stork
Cindy,
brings babies,
yes,
kind of a
about
thing.
where they come from, or if that's supposed
Or if
to
that is
actually be.
who's come from. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's
what
hard
we're
to tell
supposed
because when they get done with the story, Cindy goes, "Oh, that's where they come from," and there's like kind of a wry moment where the audience is supposed to laugh and chuckle, like, "Oh, kids, they, like that, But also it's like, but it feels like that is actually his backstory,
right? Because if that's not his backstory, then actually, where did he come from?
Right, but. And so at the beginning, I was saying all that to clarify that what we're seeing in the moment when we see him floating in may or may not be real. You know what I mean? Like, may or may not be what actually happened. But in that moment where the bassinets come floating in, he seemingly, like, a wind catches him. And I couldn't tell if the implication was that he was being blown in from some other area. Like, he got blown off course. He was supposed to go...
He was supposed to go to, like, Grinchville.
Right. Yes. And somehow got blown into WhoVille.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it seems like they're going for. Maybe. But if that was the case, you would think we would have seen any other... we would have seen any reference to Grinchville or whatever, like the place where he was supposed to be, or the people that... Because and maybe it's just that he is... Because I couldn't parse, like, why... Okay, so why is he green then? Why... Like you said, he's already Grinchy before the big bullying moment that turns him into a Grinch. Like, we see him being, like, kind of... Yeah, Grinchy, for lack of a better word. Like,
he already dislikes Christmas.
Yeah.
He's already kind of...
From a baby, he's, like, eating Santa and laughing about it. And, yeah. And so it makes it very... It muddles the message in a way that is... a little bit unclear, and like ultimately the point kind of it all kind of works out in the wash. The point is just don't treat different people differently, like blah blah blah. We're all wonderful. Like, diversity is great. Like the kind of the like broad milquetoast point of the thing is like, don't be mean to people, basically. But it does make it weird and kind of muddy when I still don't even dislike the idea that, like, even though he was already kind of Grinchy, that's not necessarily a good reason for them to have been, like, the jerks that they are to him. And that, like, some people just, their personalities are different. Like, he doesn't really like Christmas. That's fine. Like, you don't have to bully him because of that. Like, I think that even works. But I agree. It just sort of raises, not for kids, I don't think, but for... anybody thinking about it, raises some weird questions.
Yeah, I think it does get muddled. And, like, giving him a backstory where he is more intimately involved with the Who's does feel like it should be a natural extension of the story we're given, but I'm not sure the writer's room quite nailed it.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked better one of two ways. If he had either initially been kind of ambivalent towards Christmas, and then after he's bullied, his hatred of the Who's like manifests as a hatred of Christmas.
Right.
Or if he doesn't like Christmas right off the bat, and he gets bullied for that rather than for his appearance.
Yes.
It's a very, like, mixed message going on. It kind of feels like the two halves of his backstory were being written by people who weren't talking to each other.
That's a good point. I agree. Yeah, it just kind of muddies it in a way. Again, I think overall, if you just kind of, like, lean back and squint, it kind of works.
Yeah.
But if you, like, open it, like, if you're, like, focus on any part of it, it's like, I don't know. It's a little messy, but yeah, for what they're going for, it works okay. And I think I don't know if you had to necessarily give him the backstory, but to expand the film out to a length, you had to do something.
Yeah, you had to do something.
You had to do something to get it to a feature-length film. because it's not even a particularly long film with all that they added. It's still only an hour 45, so it's not like a crazy long film. So they had to add something, and so I think adding Grinch backstory and making it a parable about bullying and acceptance and difference and that sort of thing, I think makes sense. I just don't know if they nailed it perfectly.
Yeah.
I guess is the only kind of issue that I have. As you mentioned, Cindy Lou Who nominates the Grinch to be, as the person who needs it most, to be the cheermeister for the what is it?
Whobilation.
Whobilation. I keep wanting to say Whobilation. And he's going to come down. He's going to be the cheermeister, which is a very prestigious award. And she ends up talking him into coming down. But the cheermeister thing, none of that's in the book, right?
No, none of that is from the book.
I was fairly certain. This is a little detail that I feel pretty confident, and I could be wrong. There's a moment, so after he goes down, he's the cheermeister, things go awry. Like, it starts okay, but then by the end, they give him the clippers, which was the thing that triggers his PTSD from being bullied as a kid, and it all spins out of control, and he goes back up to Mount Crumpet and decides to seek his revenge on the Who's, and his plan is to steal Christmas. And so he's got to make his Santa a costume so he can sneak into the WhoVille and steal everything. And as he's making the costume, I remember the one shot that is in the animated one is when he's cutting out cutting out like the fabric
curtain,
of the coat, and it like falls out and he's behind it. Is that in the book or is that just in the animated?
I think that's just in the animated one.
Because I remember that vividly from the animated one. I feel like. But there's another moment in this movie where he's sewing his costume, and he sews his fingers into the fabric, and I had a vivid memory, like it struck a chord in my brain that I remembered that very vividly, and I was like, that has to be in the book or the animated film, one of them.
Well, it's not in the book.
Okay.
And I don't recall it being in the cartoon. I could be misremembering.
Okay.
We did not rewatch the animated cartoon. I thought about it, but we didn't have time to rewatch it before we watched this one. And I don't have a memory of that, but it has been like several years since I watched the 66 cartoon. So, but it's not in the book.
Yeah. All right. I'm watching it right now. Okay. So first potential problem with my idea is that, oh, wait, there's a sewing machine. At first, he was hand sewing, and I was like, if he's hand sewing. But now he's at a sewing machine, and Max is working the pedal. I remember that now, where Max is running the pedal, and the Grinch is sewing. Oh, yeah, 100%. I recall
Does he sew
this.
his fingers?
It hasn't happened yet, but no.
Oh, no, he sews Max's tail.
Max's tail. That's what it is.
I remember that now. Yes.
He sews Max's tail, and they changed it to his fingers. That's what it is. Which doesn't make any sense that he sewed Max's tail, because Max was was working the pedal.
How'd he get up on the sewing machine?
Yeah. Anyways. Okay.
Glad we solved that.
We solved it. Speaking of Max, one of the little details that I've always loved from the animated one and from the book, again, I remember it in the animated film because I've seen that a dozen times or whatever in my life. I've only read the book probably once or twice as a little kid. But I love when he's turning Max into a reindeer. Something about the single antler tied to his head always cracked me up as a kid. Like I just thought it was the funniest, silliest thing. And they do that in this one where he ties a single antler that he cut off a mounted deer's head on the wall to Max's head. And I wanted to know if he does that in the book.
Yes. Max is pretty spot on with his reindeer costume.
Yeah.
The single antler tied with red thread.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know what it is about that. For some reason, the way it's tied to his head just makes me laugh a lot. I don't know. So he also has to get his sled in working order. And this is a thing that I'm pretty sure this movie added, but I wanted to clarify, is that in this movie, the sled is rocket powered. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't think in the book that the sled is rocket powered, but I could be wrong. I could be misremembering. Is his sled rocket powered in the book?
No, it's just a regular sleigh that Max, who is apparently a super dog, pulls.
Oh, Max just pulls it?
Yeah.
He is a super dog.
I know. Especially when it's full of stuff.
Yeah, this is full of a lot of stuff. And then, so at this point in the movie now, where as he's getting ready to go, seek his revenge, and he's preparing his costume and all that sort of stuff, I was like, oh, wait a second. This last, 15 minutes, and at this point we're 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour into the film. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh wait, this is just the animated cartoon now. As he's sitting there in front of his hideout and they're singing or whatever, and he's super mad and he's like, I'm gonna do something, and it's Christmas Eve and he's like, I'm gonna do something about this, and then he's making and I was like, this is all just the cartoon. I was like, wait a second, is the whole last 45 minutes of this movie just like a shot-for-shot remake of the cartoon? And it's not that. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, but it's Anyways, is that what, since you did read the book, is that the last 45 minutes of this movie kind of just the book, and then everything else before that is what's the addition?
Yeah, pretty much. Lots of setup in that initial 45 minutes to an hour, and then a fairly faithful remake adaptation of the book and the 1966 cartoon.
Yeah, that's what stuck out to me. I was like, holy cow, this is so similar. Mm-hmm. A lot of the details here, which I think, I mean, you could criticize it for being retreading old ground, but I think if you're gonna do it, it makes sense to kind of pull a lot of stuff from the thing that everybody loves already. Yeah. And kind of do it different. It's not like they're it would be one thing if they just took which maybe the Illumination version does this, which we'll find out, I guess. Not looking forward to watching that. It would be one thing if you're going to do a 3D animated, like a Pixar version or whatever, like the Illumination version. And you did that, but then just basically did a shot-for-shot remake or whatever. That would be one thing that would be like, oh, okay, did we need this? It's the same thing, except in 3D instead of 2D or whatever. But to have it in live action and then really pull and hearken a lot to the animated special and the book, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well.
I think the two things that make that work are that it is a change in medium. Yeah. Because we go from animation to live action. And that it's not literally a shot-for-shot remake. No. We're kind of joking that it is because they do reference that cartoon a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of scenes that are directly and kind of visual moments that are pulled, but it's not
feels more like an homage.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. It's not shot for shot, and it's it's an homage. But I think that makes a lot of sense, like you said, because they are changing medium. Mm-hmm. It's fun. It works in a way where it pulls on nostalgia, but also does enough new things that it feels interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And my last question, and this I thought was an interesting change, is that he steals everything, gets back up to Mount Crumpet with the sled full of all of the Christmas stuff, and he's about to throw it off Mount Crumpet and destroy it all. And as he's sitting there getting ready to push the sled off, he hears the Who's singing, Fa Who Dores or whatever that song is.
Yeah, which was written for the cartoon.
Yeah, the animated. Yeah, it's from the animated cartoon. And so he hears them all singing, and then he has his realization that it's not about the stuff. They're still celebrating Christmas. Oh wow,
his heart grows three sizes,
and he has his big moment of growth. And he saves everything. And I thought this was really interesting in this movie. And I could see this going either way for some people, because it does kind of feel like that thing we talk about with Disney, like the live action Disney remakes, of addressing a criticism that maybe isn't that important, but kind of retroactively, hey, we can kind of fix this. That being said, I think it does work, which I feel the same way about some of the Disney things that people complain about. Anyways, he's going to he's going to go grab the sled, and he tries to grab it, and it's sliding off the edge. Yeah. The sleigh, not the sled. And it's sliding off the cliff, and he has this moment where he says to himself, it's just toys, it's just stuff, or something like that. He goes, who cares? And like, because he can't stop it. And he's like, no, it's just stuff. And at that moment, Cindy Lou Who pokes her head out from the top of the sleigh, and because she came up looking for him.
Yeah.
And she is on the sleigh. Figured he was maybe on the sleigh or something. Got on the sleigh looking for him, and now she's about to go over the cliff. And so he actually ends up saving and pulling the sleigh back, not to save all the stuff, but to save Cindy Lou Who. I thought that was an interesting change that I think I'm a fan of.
Yeah, I actually I agree that's a good change. I think having him say, it's just stuff.
Yeah.
But then having to save Cindy helps it fit into the overall message a little better.
Yeah. Because that's the thing that I was sitting there thinking. It's like, you know, like the big moment in the book and in the animated film, and it's more complicated than this, so we can get into it, but like, having the big moment, his big hero moment, be that he just saves all the stuff that we just established wasn't important.
Yeah.
Feels a little bit, you know, like there's a clashing, there's a ludonarrative dissonance there. You're welcome, everybody. Bring out my $20 words. It might not even be the right term, but it's close. It's close enough. There's a narrative dissonance there where the narrative is telling us this stuff isn't important, but we're also supposed to be like, hooray, he saved the stuff that isn't important. You know what I mean? And so it's like, that being, so there is that dissonance there that makes it kind of like a weird, wait, what are we cheering for? Him saving the stuff we just agreed wasn't important, whatever. Now, that being said, the whole point is that he realizes
he was in the wrong.
He was in the wrong. The point of the holiday isn't the stuff, but
he was still in the wrong.
He was still in the wrong, and he shouldn't destroy the stuff, so he just chooses not to destroy the stuff. And the big moment, the moment isn't him saving the stuff. The moment is him realizing that Christmas is important, and that this holiday that brings all these people together, and that, you know, like his moral and emotional growth is what's important, and that's signified in him saving the holiday, basically. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it does feel like I said, there is like a weird kind of dissonance in like, well, but we said that stuff's not important.
Right.
Like, that's the
point.
And
I think the movie does a good thing in making that little change, even though it's kind of like a thing that doesn't really matter. Like, it's a criticism that doesn't really matter. But because the movie put more emphasis on the critique of consumer culture at Christmas time than even than the original text does, in my opinion. Yeah. I think it does, like it behooves it then to actually address that at the end.
Yeah. Behooves it works without even needing to.
I know.
It's like, wow. Kudos. Yeah, I agree. I actually quite liked that. Like I said, it does kind of feel like one of those moments where it's like the movie addressing some internet nerd's point. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like something that some nerd on the internet would be like, whoa, wait, I thought the stuff didn't matter. Why is he saving it? Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, actually, because Cindy Lou Who's on this list. You know, like it kind of does feel like the studio doing that. That being said, I think it works, and I think it does better drive home the point in a way that's interesting. Because I do, like I said, to go back kind of originally, I think even though this stuff doesn't matter, I like, there is something to be said. The stuff doesn't matter, but it is also, because I'm also, at least personally, I'm not like a complete anti-materialist, like materialist in the sense of like things are important to people. Yeah. Like, and things do matter to people. And like, yeah, sure. Like maybe ideally, you know, if you could be perfectly happy without material possessions, maybe great. That's great for you. But like, things are important. Things tell stories. Things are how we connect with other people. Like, they are part of our culture, like of human existence. Like things carry meaning for people. And there's something we said about, you know, there's this, and I think this movie actually does a fairly good job of it, sort of criticizing the disposable things, the fact that they get all these presents and they just ship them up to the dump, out, you know, like 6 months later, they just get rid of it all. And the movie actually makes a specific point of that. But something like the Christmas tree, or, you know, their Christmas dinner that they have together, stuff like that, like these things that actually carry more meaning beyond being the present, like the meaningless like $10
Right. Yeah.
present you
The
got.
present that you play with for
Yeah.
10 minutes and then don't touch for a year, and then your mom donates it to Goodwill.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that there is a difference in that, and that he's actually saving those elements, those sort of material signifiers of the holiday spirit, as opposed to like, the Walmart checkout line stocking stuffer.
Yeah.
That's not what he's saving there in the animated or the book. He's saving the like physical embodiment of the Christmas spirit in these things. I don't know. It's just interesting. It's an interesting sort of like I said, sort of dissonant scene that the movie tries to address, and I think does okay. Okay, Katie, let's find out what you thought was better in the book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
So this is an interesting one because of kind of the way that they constructed this adaptation. So a lot of my stuff here are just things I didn't particularly care for in the movie, because a lot of what's in the book is in the movie.
Yeah.
Although there is one thing from the illustrations that I don't think is referenced in the movie, which is that the Grinch appears to be wearing nothing, but also he has like a hoodie pocket on his stomach.
In the book?
Yeah.
I don't feel like
Let
I
me
noticed this.
show
Yeah,
you
show me
this.
picture. Nice. I love the idea that the Grinch, evolved with a hoodie. I mean, to
He
be fair,
has,
he's a marsupial.
Yeah, he has like a
He's got a
kangaroo
pouch. Yeah, he's got a pouch. But yeah, it does look like a hoodie,
Yeah.
a hoodie pass-through pocket.
It does.
Yeah, that's fun.
I will post that on social media.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I
for
ever
anyone
noticed that.
who has not noticed that.
That would have been a fun, because that would have been a fun moment in the movie too, because he could have been like, I have pockets. And like,
Yeah.
like it could have been like a fun joke to like the
Which,
the
and
dress,
I
have
don't
pockets thing.
recall
I don't
that
know.
the movie ever like alluded to that or anything. If
No,
it did,
no,
I
no,
didn't
no.
notice it.
No, I don't think so. No.
So a couple things in the movie that I could have done without. I could have done without the Grinch flying face first into Martha May's cleavage.
Yes,
Could
agreed.
have done without that.
Nope. No, thank you.
And I also could have done without the dog butt kissing gag. When he's in the mayor's house and the mayor's like dreaming about
yes.
kissing Martha May and he holds Max's butt up to his face.
Real dumb.
We're very like of its time humor.
Real of its time
Both of
juvenile,
those
like
things,
just
yeah.
Okay.
And my last thing here, I wanted to talk about this because I don't think this came back, but did I miss the angel that he made for Martha May coming back? Because I was fully expecting there to be like a reveal that she still had it,
Right.
that she had like hung on to it
Yeah.
all these years.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that was like either I missed it or they didn't do it.
I don't think if they did it, I missed it as well. I will say that's also my other thing that I don't love in the movie is that romantic subplot. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's weird. The him and Martha like romance like weird subplot. She doesn't know. I know it's a dumb kid's like romantic subplot.
Yeah.
But still, she doesn't know. It's been years. Like she doesn't know him. They haven't talked in decades. Like this like weird 6-year-old crush. She's in like again. I get it's for kids and like that's like whatever. It's like a silly, but it's just dumb. And it also like. I just none of that. It also like because then the Grinch is like all weird to the mayor about like just all of that. Just get rid of it. Like I don't even mind it as a plot as kids. Like her like having a crush on him and like that whole thing playing out with the mayor. I think that is all interesting and the like sort of weird love triangle as kids with the mayor and then that motivating the mayor to be the bully to him. Kind like I think all that's interesting. It's just then him coming back 30 years later or whatever, and her just immediately being like, "I'm in love with you," and I'm leaving the mayor. Like I don't know. It just I didn't love the romance subplot.
You know, I agree with you. I think it is a little weird, but I think the elements that make it weird. I think if they had lessened it in like the main narrative, like if it had been a little less overt. that would have been better.
Yeah.
Because I think if you reference it in the backstory, you're going to have to address it in the main story. But if they had done like a little less with it, it would have been more palatable. And I feel like what kind of bothers me about it is that it is, on her part, seems like it is pretty overtly sexual.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you're right. She doesn't know him.
She doesn't know him at all.
She's very attracted to him.
Yes. Yeah.
But she doesn't
know him at all.
And he seems like not a good guy. Like, if we're being honest.
Yeah, not a great guy.
Like, the movie
I mean, the mayor's a worse guy. But
yeah. And the movie kind of tries to sell him as misunderstood, which, like, I guess.
But he's also kind of
But he's also kind of a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, it just feels like I get why they did it. Like I said, I didn't mind. I like it for his backstory. I think the thing that actually might have been interesting, or if they had done, and this is a whole other thing they would have had, but if there had been some like C plot or something where they had been like writing each other over the years, like while he was up on the mountain, like they were sending letters back and forth or something, and like they had been secretly still sort of
that could have been interesting,
carrying this and maybe it wasn't romantic, but kind of, but like they had carrying on this relationship even though he was up on the mountain still. You know what I mean? Like they had been or something like that. I would
even buy it more if the backstory scene that we saw had happened when they were like in high school.
Yeah.
Rather than like
4th graders,
8 years old or whatever. Yeah. Like if they had if the implication there had been like, oh, they could have been like high school sweethearts or something, I would have been like, okay.
Yeah.
I could see how you could still be holding a torch for this guy.
Right. Yeah, but she's like in her 40s or something, in that range. And it's been 30 or 40 years and they have not talked once. And then all of a sudden, I don't know. It's just the whole thing. And again, I get it. It's like a silly kids movie romance thing where it doesn't have to really like make a lot of sense. But I just wasn't a big fan of it. So I thought they could have handled the whole romance subplot better or just gotten rid of it. One of the two. All right. Short list, but let's find out what Katie thought was better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
I liked that the movie put WhoVille on a snowflake. Like right off the bat, they say that WhoVille is on a snowflake because it fits with the lore of Who's from Horton Hears a Who that live on a speck of dust.
Oh.
And Horton actually predates the Grinch books by about 3 years.
I didn't know that.
So that's already established lore that Who's are tiny and they live on ephemeral little specks.
Well, and
floating in the air.
I could be wrong, but I believe that very often snowflakes start on particulate. Like that's how snowflakes form.
So it could form around a speck of dust.
And like rain and everything, I thought is like there's some sort of particle of. I could be wrong about this. I could be completely wrong, but there's. My thinking back to 3rd grade water cycle science or whatever, that I thought that it was not uncommon for rain or water or snow or hail and that sort of stuff to sort of conglomerate around like a dust or a particulate in the air. So that would also track with that if that was the case. I don't know. Like I said, I could be wrong about that, but
I really liked Martha May's Christmas light gun.
I almost asked about that because that was super cool.
Yeah. And it feels like true to something that could be in a Dr. Seuss book. Like a weird like cannon that shoots Christmas lights onto your house.
Gatling gun that launches Christmas
like
lights.
I feel like if I had never read How the Grinch Stole Christmas and you told me that was in the book, I'd be like, Yeah, that tracks.
I mean, because like all the contraptions
Yeah.
in Cat in the Hat or whatever.
Yeah.
Aren't there a handful of contraptions?
Yeah, they're like often like just illustrations,
Right.
But like like kind of kooky contraptions with
that
like
do
hooks
weird,
and
like
like gears and levers and
thingamajiggers
things.
and whatever. Yeah. It was. I agree. I felt fun in that way.
And the big one here, my last note, I really do enjoy the movie's expansion on the book's messages about commercialization into a more explicit, like, anti-consumer culture critique.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It does. It goes even harder on that than the animated one, which is, I mean, it's the main point of, like the main point. But yeah, it expands it, like we said before, kind of goes beyond even just the general idea of like, oh, consumerism and is taking over this holiday and that's not good. Goes beyond that to like the disposable economy and like how we just buy stuff and throw it away, and where does that stuff go? Oh, we just dump it on this mountain, and what it kind of goes beyond the initial just sort of baseline like consumerism bad to like what are the effects of this consumerism, like who does it affect, that kind of stuff.
And it feels like a very natural expansion of the story, which I think is the best way to expand a story.
Yeah,
taking something that's already in it as opposed to
like
adding
wholesale something. Yeah, I agree. All right, let's go ahead and find out what the movie nailed.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
A lot of things. I don't have every single thing on here, but the majority of what is in the book is in this movie. Just to preface this section, I just have a couple things that I particularly noticed, one of which is that the Grinch really just walks around naked.
Yep.
All the Who's wear clothes, not the Grinch.
To be fair, he's got a fur coat that they do not have.
Seemingly. I honestly think this movie does better than any other Seuss adaptation that I've seen with getting the Seussian look as close to what it is in his books.
I agree. The only other one I've seen is Cat in the Hat, which we did for the show. I have not seen. There's an animated Horton Hears a Who.
There's Horton Hears a Who. There's the Lorax.
I have not seen either of those.
I've seen the Lorax and I've seen like bits and pieces of Horton Hears a Who.
Yeah, I've not seen it.
I think that a lot of adaptations, and I believe we talked about this with the Cat in the Hat,
we did, yeah.
Go like they understand that it's wacky, but that's about all they're understanding.
Yeah.
Like I think the look of Seuss is kind of hard to nail.
Yeah, it's not super easy. It's kind of ephemeral.
And I think that this movie does a really good job with the visual aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a note I had, just kind of a general note, was like, this is a super wacky visual feast in a way that feels properly Seussian.
Mm-hmm.
Like and we talked about in the prequel, about nostalgia remakes and adaptations and that sort of thing, and about leaning in and how, some adaptations and remakes or whatever are afraid to do that, like lean into whatever the visual style that feels like it should fit with the thing. And this movie is not afraid to do that.
No, yeah, this movie really leans into the spirit of the book.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy visually everything going on in the movie, design wise. Like I think it's really, really neat. Like it's all very cool.
Yeah, and it's not like, because one of my main problems with the Cat in the Hat is that it's so Technicolor.
Yes.
Which is actually not something that you see in Dr. Seuss.
No. He uses very few colors.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a handful of colors, and like we said, the Grinch isn't even green in the book.
Yeah, it's very like his use of color is actually fairly constrained in most of his books.
Yeah.
He picks like a handful and works with those colors. And I think this particular movie, whoever did the sets just had a really good grasp on what makes it look like Seuss.
And the person who color graded in the cinematography does not over accentuate. At times it gets a little like into that like 90s wacky, super oversaturated. Occasionally you get some moments of that, but it's not like, I don't know. It doesn't feel the same that like Cat in the Hat did, where it's just everything's like all the colors dialed up to like 1,000.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel that way. It's another thing in this one. The world feels lived in, and grimy, in a way that feels real. Like when you go to WhoVille, even WhoVille, like obviously the Grinch's lair and all that is like grimy and kind of gross and whatever. But even like WhoVille, the sets that they built, and we talked about in the prequel, this is like the largest at the time, at least, was the largest set on the Universal Pictures lot. But they really did spend a lot of time like aging it and weathering it and making it look lived in and feel real. And it doesn't feel like this, because like the Cat in the Hat feels like a plastic artificial like nonsense, whereas this feels like a real place, at least to some extent, in a way that works enough for a film. So
the Grinch just whips himself up a bespoke Santa suit, like no big deal.
Right?
Listen, making garments is hard.
Not easy. He does it way wrong, but it still works somehow.
I guess it works well enough, but yeah, he just goes for it.
I feel pretty confident you don't generally cut the sleeves out with
no, you
it's
don't.
like, that is not how you do.
Don't.
Nah, sleeves go on separately.
Sleeves are hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's a thing that he does.
Yeah.
The Who's circled around the tree singing. That is something from the book. Also repeated in the 1966 cartoon.
And there's a particular shot in that moment that I was like, I see the cartoon version.
Yeah, there's a definite
a frame of it that I'm like, that's
to
from
the cartoon.
The cartoon.
But that is also in the book.
Yeah.
And then something that...
Do they sing Fa Who Dores or whatever? What are there words sung in the book? Like, are they...
No, I don't believe so. Let me double check.
Because that always cracked me up in the cartoon. I don't know what they're saying. I know it's just like Who gibberish or whatever, but...
No, there are no lyrics in the book.
Because I was trying to Google the song.
No,
it's like Fa Who Doris? What are they saying?
Fa Who Dore.
And then it's like Da Who Doris
but
or something.
I saw a note somewhere as I was doing research for the prequel that when they were coming up with the song, they wrote that song specifically for the 66 cartoon because they didn't want to use a Christmas song that was already in existence, but they kind of wanted it to sound like a pseudo Latin, like older Christmas song, like Gloria in Excelsis Deo kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what we ended up with was Fa Who Dore.
Like Hoovy in Latin.
Yeah.
No, it totally works. It's a very pretty song. Like it's delightful. I like it.
And the last thing here is actually not in the book, but it is something that was taken directly from the 1966 cartoon. We double checked this as we were watching the movie.
Yes.
Because I was like, I feel like I remember this. Was the Grinch picking up the entire sleigh
and
to keep it from
his
falling
head.
off of the mountain. Yeah.
And the frame in the movie is like identical to the frame from the animated cartoon.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, we got a handful in odds and ends before we get to the final verdict. I remembered pretty early, I was reminded pretty immediately because I had forgotten this existed, the Where Are You Christmas song. Mm-hmm. That's a nice Christmas song.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice. I like it. It's not like the best Christmas song, but it's pretty good. And when we got to the credits start playing, and you get the classic 2000s.
Yeah,
it's
pop. not a 90s 2000s movie without a soulful pop rendition of the main song, sung by someone that you're not really sure how they got attached to that project.
And in this instance, it's Faith Hill did "Where Are You Christmas" for the pop release, and I was like, Faith Hill, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I was like, I feel like Faith Hill made her money and was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
She got rich, she got real famous, and then was like, I'm out. Kudos.
Good for her.
Yep.
I don't know anything about Faith Hill.
Nothing. She might be a nightmare.
She might be a horrible person.
She might be terrible.
But if I made F off money, that's what I would do. You would never hear from me again.
Yep. Absolutely.
I thought the makeups in this looked really good.
They won an Oscar for it, yeah.
Like, the Who faces look great. They
Yeah.
all have snouts, and you can't even see any seams.
No, the makeup's all fantastic. And we talked about it in the prequel.
And you get close-ups of them, too.
Yeah. We talked about it in the prequel. Rick Baker was the head. I mean, he designed the Grinch makeup, which is fantastic. I mean, it looks just like, not just like the book, but as close as you could get to the book pretty much, while adding some more detail to make it look more realistic. And yeah, all the Who's, like, I honestly, it almost doesn't even look like Jeffrey Tambor, the guy who plays the mayor. I know he's in there, but it does something about it doesn't even look like him to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all fantastic. Like I said, Rick Baker did was like the lead makeup artist, and Kazu, now I can't remember. It's Kazu something. Kazuhiro maybe. Did like a lot of the makeup and stuff, and he's won Oscars. And tons of really talented makeup artists work on this. And like I said, the movie won the Oscar for makeup. But very deservedly so, because it is very good.
Yes.
And Jim Carrey's Grinch makeup, as much of a nightmare as it apparently was to wear, emotes so incredibly.
Yeah.
Like, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
He's also terrifying.
Yeah.
I had forgotten how terrifying his Grinch was.
Yeah. I also I so little recognized Jeffrey Tambor as the mayor that I legitimately in my head, until we were watching the movie and I Googled it, thought Stanley Tucci played the mayor in this movie. To me,
you know what? I could see why you thought that.
Looks and just is the mayor. He's kind of doing a little bit of like Caesar Flickerman from the Hunger Games,
like
his like verbose kind
and
of
the hairstyle doesn't help.
Yeah,
either.
and the hairstyle and the eyelash, like he feels like a member of the Capitol, like a citizen of the Capitol, and I think that's kind of what was going on. But yeah, I always like in my head, if you would gun to my head, who is the mayor in How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey, I'd be like Stanley Tucci, and that would be my end. But not anymore. Jeffrey Tambor.
Speaking of the actors in this, Taylor Momsen was like 6 or 7 years old.
She's a child. I couldn't get over how little she is in this.
She's very good.
She's fantastic.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she did a handful of other things for a while. Like she was in Gossip Girl and stuff. This is like the only thing I'd ever really seen her in, I think. Maybe a couple other like small bit roles and stuff.
I've watched a little bit of Gossip Girl. I haven't watched all of it. I think she primarily is a musician now.
Oh yeah. No, and that I was gonna say she actually got out of acting. I don't think she's really hasn't acted it since like since Gossip Girl basically, and she's primarily just she's in a band, like she does music now. And I don't know anything about her band. I'm sure she's a good singer as a little kid. So
I remember, and I don't know why I remember this so vividly, but around the time that this movie came out, I had a subscription to American Girl magazine. I know. I felt very fancy. It was like a nice thing that I had for a couple years was a subscription to American Girl. And around the time this movie came out, they did a feature with her, like an interview about like being in this movie.
About being Cindy Lou Who.
And
Did they have a Cindy Lou Who American Girl doll?
No, I don't think so.
That would have been amazing.
But I remember like reading about her talking about like the hairpiece thing that she wore in the movie and stuff.
Yeah. It's because that's the thing people do now with their kids. They put a water bottle in there, right? I've seen tutorials for like how to do like Cindy Lou Who hair, and I feel like it's just like stick a water bottle underneath.
A water bottle or something, and or like an empty soda can. Would work. I mean, hers in the movie is like a separate piece,
right?
It doesn't have her actual hair wrapped around it, but
we have to give props to the Grinch for being a bit of a genius. He has a zip line directly from his bed to his recliner, and I need that in my life. I want a zip line that goes directly from my bed to my chair. I want that. I just want it. Be a lot of fun.
We both had a note about somebody that we thought the Jim Carrey was impersonating.
Yes.
In this, and I wasn't sure what yours was a reference to, so I just put it by mine.
Mine was earlier for a reason, but we'll get there.
Okay. So There's at one point, and I think he's just talking to Max to himself.
He's talking to Max. It's when they're getting ready to go.
And he's giving director notes, and I was like, is he doing Ron Howard?
Yes.
Okay.
He's very specifically, and I actually almost included that in the prequel notes. I just didn't. He's very specifically doing Ron Howard. That's why he's wearing that hat.
Yeah,
that's the Ron Howard hat.
Yeah, that was what I was like,
that like
sure.
navy hat or whatever that Ron Howard. I don't know if he wears it anymore, but he always used to wear when he was.
Yeah,
directing.
like every picture I've seen of Ron Howard as a director, he's wearing that hat.
Yeah, no, 100%. He was doing Ron Howard, and he like improv'd all of that, like, and he was just kind of like making fun of Ron Howard and like and they were all apparently everybody on set was like losing their mind over it and whatever, which is funny because he doesn't. I don't know how much he actually is. Sounds like I feel like Ron Howard, that wouldn't be his director style. At least it seems to me like that wouldn't be the kind of Ron Howard. To me feels like a very quiet, like kind of like come up and like kind of like, you know, kind of talk right to the, like, get real close to the actors and like kind of quiet. Like, at least to me it feels like that's the kind of director. I have no idea, but it doesn't feel like Ron Howard's like a big screamy like tyrant director. Who knows? But yes, 100% he's doing Ron Howard there. To me, the thing that I thought was really interesting is that his accent just throughout most of the movie, the Grinch's voice, the voice that Jim Carrey is doing, sounds like a bad impersonation of Jimmy Stewart to me.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And
it's actually really funny because I was Googling trying to figure out if that was the case, and I saw a couple reviews mention that. And on SNL at one point back in the day, Jim Carrey did a bit where he was Jimmy Stewart. So he has a Jimmy Stewart impersonation. And I actually think that's a really interesting choice. Assuming that was an intentional choice and not just like where that voice landed was like in the ballpark of Jimmy Stewart.
I wonder if, because he's obviously wearing false teeth.
Yeah.
And a lot of makeup on his face. If he had some trouble talking and it was easier to like lean into a Jimmy Stewart-esque.
Probably, like doing like a very arch, like transatlantic.
Yeah.
Because, Jimmy Stewart kind of had that transatlantic, like, rah, 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 like, you know, that like super arch 20s, 30s TV movie star accent. My thought was that, you know, like Jimmy Stewart, maybe most known, known for a shit ton of stuff, but maybe most known for one of the most beloved Christmas movies of all time. I thought it's kind of an interesting idea to take your protagonist.
Yeah, that
to do
interesting. Yeah,
kind of a bad impersonation of Jimmy Stewart in this movie as sort of an homage / wink wink kind of, you know, nudge nudge to It's a Wonderful Life. I think it works. I thought it was fun. But I was like, he sounds a lot like Jimmy. He doesn't do it the whole time, and his voice goes all over the place over the course of the movie. But a lot of the time, like when he's doing his normal voice, like his quote unquote normal Grinch voice, he kind of sounds like Jimmy Stewart. Like he does like a bit of a Jimmy Stewart.
So we find out in the Grinch's backstory that he was raised by these two older women who lived together.
Yeah.
And I feel like all the movie is saying is that they're like spinsters or whatever.
I think that's what they're,
But all I could think was that if this movie was made today, they would be touted as lesbian moms.
Yeah, his lesbian power couple moms. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
It would be, they would get a lot of press as being lesbians, but then they would be in even less of the movie.
Yes.
If it was made today.
True. Yes. The first gay couple in a Seuss adaptation. They're in like 3 seconds of the movie. Also, the Who's out here having a key party. I don't know if you noticed that. They're having that raucous, that might have been the, Who, oh my God, what is it called? Whobilation? Yes. Might have been the Whobilation. I can't remember, but they're the Grinch is like spying on them or whatever, or it might be a flashback. I don't recall.
It's when he floats down in his bassinet and he's stuck in the tree.
Yeah, outside. And meanwhile, the Who's are having a raucous party and they're all throwing their keys into a fishbowl. And I was like, wait a second. Okay, I see you.
That's why they like Christmas so much.
Yeah, it's one time a year they get to party. Mix it up a bit. I mentioned this earlier, but this is one of those movies that I as we were watching it, I had a much more vivid memory of some of the scenes than I recalled. And there was a handful of lines throughout the film that really, like, I was like, I never would have thought I had a memory of this, and out of the context of the film, I do not have a memory of it. But then when the scene happened in the movie, I was like, oh, it was like it was like somebody had plugged the Matrix jack into the back of my head and was like, you remember this? And I was like, oh my God. And there was a handful of those throughout the film. And one of them, a couple of them, one of them was the phone book scene where he's yelling at all the Who's and he's like, hate, double hate, utterly loathe. Like that scene I stuck out to me. And then another one was when they're all singing Christmas music or playing Christmas music and he's laying in bed and he's like, curse that Christmas music. It's joyful and triumphant. Joyful and triumphant, I feel like is a thing I say every now and then in reference to certain things. And I think it's because of this movie. And also the other one that stuck out to me was nice kid. Bad judge of character. I don't know. And there was more, but there were so many moments where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I think this movie subconsciously shaped how I talk sometimes without even realizing it. Not a ton. Like, it's not something I say all the time, but it is stuff that I don't know. It's definitely some of those lines that have just like, I feel like I worked those into my conversation and I never would have realized those came from this movie.
The one that I still see memed all the time is the dinner with me. I can't cancel that again.
Yes,
scene.
That is a very popular. Yeah. That one you see around on the internet every now and then for sure. Yeah, very popular. That whole scene is really good. And there's a lot of moments throughout the movie, honestly. Jim Carrey his Grinch has some very hashtag relatable millennial content. You know what I mean? Like
movies that shaped us.
Yeah. 4:00, wallow in self-loathing. 6:00, yeah. It's just like.
What if I push the self-loathing to 9?
Yeah. I did notice two times in this film there was a black Who in the back. Actually, there was two. I saw two. There was one little girl a black little girl who. At one point early in the film, and then at the very end when they were all singing, there was an older woman who was black, and that was it. Oh, and there was some other diversity, to be fair. In the final scene, when they're all singing around singing, we see there. I think there's somebody who appeared to be maybe Indian or something like that. And there were some other ethnicities going on. It wasn't all just white Who's. All of our main characters are white. Completely.
Yes.
But there was some of that very, sort of lip service background character diversity. Which, also, I also loved the moment where the Grinch breaks the fourth wall when he realizes he's talking in rhyme. And he's like, I'm talking in rhyme. I hate that. Or whatever he says. He says something like that. Great moment. There's lots of moments like that in this movie that are very delightful. I know this movie isn't super popular, and it's not a great movie, but there's lots of really funny moments throughout the film, and I enjoy it more than I feel like it deserves. I guess, maybe. I don't know. Anyways. All right, before we get to the final verdict, we wanted to remind you can do us a giant favor by heading over to patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Support us there for a couple bucks a month, whatever you got. All of it goes to the podcast. It helps us do what we do, and you get access to bonus content and stuff at different levels. You can see all the details at patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Also, you can do us a giant favor by heading over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Goodreads and following us there. We post all kinds of stuff, pictures, memes, blah, blah, blah. Most importantly, we post feedback threads where we get your feedback, and then on the prequel episodes, we talk about that feedback, we discuss it. So follow us on those social media platforms and become part of the conversation. And speaking of Patreon, we wanted to remind you all that our bonus episode for this month, even though technically we already had one this month because we put out the last one a little bit late. And by we, I mean I, because we had recorded it in time. I just didn't get to edit it in time. We have our bonus episode for this month is going to be the 2018 Illumination version of The Grinch. So or How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or that one might just be called The Grinch.
I think it's just called The Grinch. Yeah.
I know one of them was just called The Grinch. So we're going to be discussing that adaptation over on our bonus content. We'll also very likely be putting out, maybe not this month, but maybe very beginning of January. We're currently watching season 2 of The Witcher, which is one of our favorite shows. We're 4 episodes in. Spoilers, fucking loving it. So good. Honestly, even better than the first season so far, or maybe not better, but as good, if not better. So we'll be putting out at least something on our bonus content feed about Witcher season 2. So that's another thing to look forward to in the coming weeks. And I think that's all we got for that. Katie, it's time for your final verdict.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first, verdict afterward.
We have done several picture book adaptations on this show, and the ones that we've covered up to this point have all taken the approach of like taking the core idea of the book and building a story around like that main idea. This one feels a little different because this movie actually does contain a very faithful adaptation of arguably both the book and the 1966 animated special. But what it's done is taken that original story and just kind of added on to it. I realize this is probably like a nuanced difference that I'm trying to describe here. I feel like the other adaptations that we've done took the seed of an idea and grew a whole new tree, while this adaptation has decorated an existing tree, if that makes sense.
I agree, because it really is, like I said, the thing that really stuck out to me this time upon watching it, not to derail you just real quick, is how much it is an entirely new, different thing for the first 45 minutes, like an entirely separate from the book / animated version, or cartoon from the 60s, and then the end is just
the story.
Yeah, which is an interesting way to do it.
And I think the extent to which that approach works is kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Expanding Cindy Lou Who's characters so that she can act as an audience insert works. Expanding the Grinch's backstory is on shaky foundations, in my opinion. The romance subplot doesn't really work. The element that I think works best is the story's expansion of the book's criticism of the book's criticism of commercialization into a more explicit critique of Christmas consumer culture. And I think that works because it's taking something that's already there and nudging it into something that's a little bit bigger. I like this movie. I think it's fun. I think a lot of the elements work well. I also think it's one of the better Seuss adaptations out there, in part because there was clearly a lot of care put into achieving that end. But I don't think it's been elevated into something that's better than the book. I think it's a fun supplement to the book, but I wouldn't call it like a good alternative to it. So this week, I'm giving this one to the book. Merry Christmas.
Fantastic. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. Before we wrap things up, Katie, what can people expect next?
Well, we are taking a week off, as we've done after Christmas for the past few years.
A little holiday break.
So there will not be a new episode next week, and then we will be back in 2022. January's episodes will be announced on our Patreon page, and that's a feature that is available at all subscription levels. And the next immediate episode will be announced on our social media pages as per the usual following our week off.
Wow. So the answer is there is no answer. You don't get to know yet.
Yeah, you don't get to know yet.
Fantastic.
Because they're not. I don't like to announce before that goes out on Patreon because I feel like that defeats the purpose.
That's the whole point
of that special feature.
Yeah.
So I believe it will post on Patreon on the 26th. So you'll find out what both of the January episodes will be, and then our usual social media announcement will go up like the 2nd or 3rd of January, I guess, whatever that Sunday is.
Yeah. Sounds good. No, I'm totally fine. So come back in a couple weeks and you'll find out what we're doing. We'll also have a prequel episode. Until that time, spend some time with your family, or don't, because, you know, coronavirus, it's a nightmare. Figure out what you can do safely and not do. Just stay safe, stay healthy, hopefully stay happy, and celebrate this time of year in whatever way you see fit, in whatever way you enjoy most. And we'll see you in 2022. Until that time, guys, gals, non-binary pals, everybody else,
Keep reading books
keep watching movies,
and keep being awesome.